Welcome, 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 family. Come on in here. Yes, it's the truth hour, baby. Yes, let's get on in here to get your brain and mind stimulated with truth and facts. That's what we deal with over here, not faith and belief. It's truth and facts over here. So if you can't stand or can't deal with truth or facts, you can go ahead and unsubscribe and get off my channel right now. If you don't know who this is by now, it's none other than DeAndre Devon Manley, aka and hashtag pro black everything, P.B.E, established March 1st, 1979. First and foremost, I give a shout out to my God and my goddess, my mom and my father, my mother and my father, the one that birthed me. I got a navel, so I know a woman preceded me. I know I came from a woman. I don't have to debate that. That's just factual. AKA and hashtag religion killer. Well, what religion? DeAndre Devon Manley, pro black everything. Every religion. Listen up, black man, black woman, black child, specifically black children. Every time you done heard about a God or a religion, a human being then told you about said God and said religion in one way, shape, or form. I'm going to say that again to the black man, black woman, black child, and humanity now. For all humans, every time you done heard about a said God or a said religion, another human being then told you about said God and said religion in one way, shape, or form. No God has never told you about humans. Can none of y'all show and prove of a God talking to you about humans? Humans told you about a God and a religion. That's all factual. I'm not making it up. Like I told you, this is the truth hour over here. This truth and facts over here, not faith and belief. Every time you'd have heard about a God, like I said, it's by a human. There's been over 2,500 deities, gods, worship in human history. I'm going to say that again. Over 2,500 gods worship in human history. Do y'all understand that? Christianity and Islam being the newest deities, the newest religions in human history. Christianity being about 1,500 years old, and Islam being about, Christianity being about 2,000 years old, and Islam being about 1,500 years old. So, family, human race, black man, black woman, black child, 2,100 years ago, there was no such thing as no Christianity. There was no such thing as Islam. Humans made them religions up. Like they made all of these 2,500 deities up and worship them. Family, if you do a little bit of research on yourself, of this of history of this world, you will understand that. Some of the brightest scholars in the world then already broke that down about how and when and where the five W's I call them of when these religions and said gods came into existence by human beings, by the mind of human beings. That's it. I'm gonna leave that at that right there. I'll let y'all, because I'm gonna keep going in on these religions because they're all man-made, aka and hashtag political killer. Black man, black woman, black child. I'm speaking of you in America. I'm gonna say this again, aka and hashtag political killer. Every political party in America, every political system in America, every system in America, period, black man, black woman, black child, was owned, is owned, is operated and managed by the race of people that brought us here in chains and mass murder, rape, and tortured us. I'm gonna say that again. Every system of today, black man, black woman, black child, is owned still, operated, managed by the race of people that did mass murder, rape, and tortured us, butt broke us, breeding farm under their said religion and their said systems, black man, black woman, black child. You can't tell me you free if you still under all the same systems of the race of people that have mass murder, rape, and tortured you up until today. You can't be free, family. Like we got to get some real truth and some real facts out the way, family. And that's what we're gonna do today, like we always do over here. AKA and hashtag to the mothers and fathers of human civilization, that black man and that black woman. Every race that you know of today, that you can think of today, came from the black man and black woman. We are the first, numero uno, aka and hashtag to all the other species on the planet. Every other living species on the planet, aka and hashtag nothing but love and respect, aka and hashtag uh, no filters and no editing over here. It just you're not going to get it over here. Whatever I mess up, you're going to get to see it. It's okay. I'm a human being. See, I know God with me is within. See, it's nothing spooky out there that you've been taught about. See, the God has always been within. The goddess has always been within you, family. That's where it's at. That's where it lies. Not no fake beings out in the sky nowhere or underground called the devil or some God. The God and goddess is within you. The people that do devil shit, that devil is within them. All of that. You got your higher self and you have your lower self. I hope that didn't go over y'all head. Last but not least, AKA and hashtag to the Rocky Marcianos and the Mayweathers of America and the champs of the world, this white man and his mama, because he came out of his mama. They are the champs. They still run uh, 99% of all black people in America's minds. And I believe 99% of all black people global minds. And after you see this video, you're going to see, because these are some of our African brothers and sisters, kings and queens in Africa speaking. And I need y'all to go watch this video. But they are the champs of America and the champs of the world, this white man and his mama. They've been ruling America and the world for hundreds of years now, this white man and his mama. When people talk about superpowers, they never bring up black and make a superpower synonymous with any black people nowhere on the planet. You got China, which is a superpower, India, which is a superpower, the United States, which is the number one superpower, along with their cousins and brothers in Europe. Uh, who else? Uh, you got the Arabs in Saudi Arabia and all of them. In Israel, the white European Jews. These are all superpowers. They're all men ran. They're all men driven. You see, I didn't make none synonymous with black and superpower because we have no power nowhere. Not even on the continent of Africa, black man, black woman, black child. I need y'all to understand that these are facts now. Please show me the time if I'm lying that anybody anywhere or any news or anywhere made power and superpower synonymous with black. Nobody's not going to do that because it's not true. We are powerless as a race, not powerful. We're powerless. We can be powerful if we start changing our thought process. Start fighting and willing to die for everything that we're owed. Like I said in a video, a couple videos ago, it's sad that everything in human history of a black man and black woman and black child, especially in American history, we didn't been willing to fight and die for, to get out of slavery, fight and die for, Jim Crow, fight and die for, separate but equal, fight and die for, voting, fight and die for. But people are telling me today and been telling me for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years that I've been living and I've been hearing about it is we shouldn't be willing to fight and die for the trillions of dollars in reparations we owed in money, land, and education. Everything else that we didn't got in human history as black people in the last 400 or 500 years, we've been willing and have fought and died for. But for this particular thing that can set us free mentally, financially, educationally, health wise, we are being told by y'all black leaders and this motherfucking white man and his mama who play chess all the time to don't fight and be willing to die for trillions of dollars of money, land, and education. That doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to the people that's ruling you and your masters, which is this white man and his mama, but it doesn't make sense to me at all. Can somebody make that make sense? No other race no other race has been owed as much as black people is owed and not been willing to fight and die for it in human history. I think y'all need to just go look it up. People have been owed a lot less and willing to fight and die for the lot less that they're owed. but not black man, black woman, black child, because we've been taught and educated not to. So today, family, we're gonna get in here. It's just so sad that we still on this of not willing to fight and die for the stuff we're owed, and we're owed trillions upon trillions upon trillions. Family, you can't even fathom trillions, but you'll kill a nigga around the corner for $1. Got it. Don't fight for trillions. Don't be willing to die for trillions, but you'll die and kill for hundreds of dollars because a nigga owe you. Let's make it make sense, black family, black man, black woman, black child. Let's at least make it make sense. So today we're gonna get in here. We got a couple videos. For one, I'm gonna let you get a short clip of this video you see up here now. And what you're gonna see is the black king gonna get up here. The bishop is gonna get up here and he's gonna break down real quick. I want y'all to, if y'all can, go and watch this whole video. I just put it to a particular point because this was a drop the mic moment on this part when he said that. What you about to hear him say about the black minds under these religions and our culture. Now they're having a back and forth about Christianity and all of this. Go watch the whole thing, but watch what this king say. Watch what this God say. That's a drop the mic moment. Let's get it here. Let's get it. Then after this, we're gonna go here and we're gonna listen to some video about this slave breeding in America. So let's go. Let's get it in here, fam. Let's get it here and let's listen up.
Was now ranting.
It's running out of time.
The mind of a colonized person is pathetic.
The mind of a colonized person, mind of a colonized black man, woman, and child is fucking pathetic. He's telling the truth. Keep going, King. My apologies.
That we have to sit in this day and age and protect a system that has vandalized and destroyed us to such an extent that we can sit around and debate its veracity.
Did you hear what he said? Okay, keep going.
Within our cultural corridors.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Shame.
That we must seek for tolerance with external forces that are encroaching into our cultural space. We have never imposed African culture on the European system.
We have never, he said. There's something he said we never have done. We never forced our culture on the European system. Never. Let's go.
But here we are as Africans, fighting with each other of how to protect the colonial religious system that has invaded our space.
But we're fighting about these religions that's not ours. Go ahead, King.
I'm not sorry for saying what I say, but on behalf of the grandchildren that will come after me, we have an enemy in the house that has corrupted our minds. And if we pursue on this path of debate, we'll end up as coconuts, brown on the outside and white on the inside.
I'm going to go back with uninterrupted to hear, so y'all can hear what this man said. Because he just killed it. He literally just killed it. So let's go and listen to it again uninterrupted. Pay attention, black man, black woman, black child, or any race of people that's listening to this. Let's go.
That I'd be asked to keep, sorry, I'm getting emotional because it's not right. That's all I can say. Anyway, but we're almost...
She was now ranting. She was not presenting fakes. She was now ranting.
It's running out of time.
The mind of a colonized person is pathetic. That we have to sit in this day and age and protect a system that has vandalized and destroyed us to such an extent that we can sit around and debate its veracity within our cultural corridors.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we must seek for tolerance with external forces that are encroaching into our cultural space. We have never imposed African culture on the European system. But here we are as Africans, fighting with each other of how to protect the colonial religious system that has invaded our space. I'm not sorry for saying what I say, but on behalf of the grandchildren that will come after me, we have an enemy in the house that has corrupted our minds. And if we pursue on this path of debate, we'll end up as coconuts, brown on the outside and white on the inside.
For me, as to maintain...
That's a drop the mic motherfucking moment because that bishop said nothing but the motherfucking truth and fact. Our mind has been corrupted by the slave masters' religion, by our conquerors' religions. that we follow and are willing to give all our money and time and willing to die for. And people tell me when I say that the white man is the motherfucking champs, and they be like, Dre, you're saying too much. That's wrong to say that. No, that's just factual. They are the champs. When a motherfucker got your whole mind into their system and willing to fight other black men and women, debate other black men and women about the white man's systems. Mm, 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 mm. Boy, I tell you. So let's get on in here, family. In this next video, we're going to hit them quick today. This Friday, May 12th, Friday lessons. So we're going to get it here. Go back and watch that whole thing. He killed it from the beginning when he spoke. But I will tell you to go watch the whole, I think it's 2 or 3 parts to make up the whole video. If you can find the whole video in there, watch it at once. But I think I broke it up and they had it in 2 separate ones or 3 separate ones. So what we're going to get in here now and do is talk about this the slave breeding. The 10 facts about slave breedings that the school won't teach you. They say fail to teach you, but won't teach you. So as y'all watching this, I need y'all to understand the stuff I be saying when I call this white man the most gangster, the most savage, the most corrupt, the most and the biggest mass murder, rape, and torture. Don't tell me about no thug and no gangster if we not in no mass savage race of people if we not talking about this white man and his mama. Because there's been no other race that's been more savage and more gangster, thug, killing, drug dealing, mass murder, mass rape, and torture than this white man for at least the last 500 years in human history. This is all documented. I'm not making none of this up. I don't want to hear about no black gangster thug killer nowhere in America, nowhere in the world, because they can't none of them stand up to this motherfucking white man and his mama. Like I said, I was in the army for 20 years. I seen the mass murder, rape, and torture that this white man called under the guise of America 3Ks don't get it fucked up will do. They destabilize whole nations, mass murder whole countries to take their resources. The same that they did to the continent of Africa. So let's go in here and watch this video. Let's get it in, family.
We all know the story of slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, the forced labor, the inhumane treatment of men, women, and children, and the eventual abolition of the slave trade. But what many of us don't know is that the abolition of the slave trade in the early 19th century led to the creation of a new and even more sinister aspect of slavery: sex farms and slave breeding farms. The goal of these farms was simple: to produce more slaves. Slave owners realized that they could no longer import slaves from Africa, so they turned to breeding them like animals. They would carefully select which slaves would mate with each other based on their physical attributes, health, and even intelligence, in the hopes of producing the strongest and most profitable offspring. Slave breeding farms were located throughout the southern United States, with some estimates suggesting that there were as many as 70 in operation at the height of their popularity. These farms were often run by wealthy plantation owners who saw slave breeding as a
P.I.C.S is giving away a shot to win up to $1 million every day of the playoffs. Claim your shot at $1 million. Show your skills and learn more at PrizePicks.com.
Lucrative business opportunity. But the horrors of slave breeding farms did not stop there. In some cases, plantation owners would set up sex farms, where slaves, often young girls, were forced to engage in sexual activity with other slaves or with the plantation owners themselves. The offspring of these forced sexual encounters were also seen as profitable commodities and were often sold off at auctions to the highest bidder. The true extent of these practices is difficult to quantify, as records were often destroyed or deliberately hidden. But it is estimated that thousands of slaves were forced to participate in these breeding programs, resulting in countless atrocities.
As you watching this, like I said, don't tell me about no other gangster, drug dealer, killer, mass murder, rape, and torture. If we're not talking about this white man and his mama still up until today. This is that savage. This is that demon and that devil that y'all read about in y'all goddamn holy books. This is that devil that y'all read about and y'all tell me about devilish and demon shit and this devil. That's this motherfucking white man. It's this motherfucking devil. Always have been, always will be. It's in them. They can't help it. Let's go.
And human rights violations. In this video, we are going to reveal 10 of the most horrific facts of slave breeding and sex farms in the United States.
Did they say 10 facts? Or did they say 10 beliefs and 10 myths? Or 10 faiths? Oh, they said 10 facts about slave breeding. So let's get in here and listen to these 10 facts. Let's go, family.
These facts may be uncomfortable to hear, but it's important to acknowledge the brutality and inhumanity of slavery in all its forms. But before that, hit the subscribe button to stay on this channel for more content like this. Fact number 1. Okay. Enslaved women were seen as breeding machines and impregnated by several men. One of the most disturbing facts about sex farms during slavery is that
Black woman. You see this savage ass white devil beast that we call a man? Keep listening.
Enslaved women were seen as little more than breeding machines. Plantation owners and overseers saw them as a means of producing more enslaved people to increase their wealth and power. In order to achieve this goal, enslaved women were often forced to have sex with several men, regardless of their own desires or consent. This practice was particularly prevalent in the Deep South, where the climate and soil were well suited to the cultivation of cotton and the demand for enslaved labor was high. Enslaved women on these plantations were often subjected to brutal physical and sexual abuse, with no hope of escape or redress. They were seen as...
So black woman, I don't want to hear you no more talking about the black man as your enemy. That's a divide and conquer tactic that this motherfucker white man and his mama been using. We clearly hearing and seeing who the fuck our enemy is and who the fuck your enemy is, black woman. And it ain't the black man. Stop it with that.
As property rather than human beings, and their bodies were treated as such. The practice of forced breeding was not limited to the Deep South, however. Okay. It was also common in other regions of the country, including the Chesapeake Bay area and the Upper South. Plantation.
Chesapeake Bay, they talk about Virginia. It was up north and down south. Like I said, this business of slave was too lucrative. It was worth too much money not to. So everybody that was able to have slaves had them. Black man, black woman, black child.
Owners in these areas also saw enslaved women as a means of increasing their wealth and power and used them accordingly.
Told you.
The evidence for the forced breeding of enslaved women can be found in a number of historical sources. Plantation records, for example, often include references to enslaved women who were breeders or breeding stock. These records also reveal the number of children produced by these women, as well as their age, health, and other relevant information. In addition to plantation records, there are also numerous slave narratives that document the experiences of enslaved women who were forced to breed. One such narrative is that of Harriet Jacobs, an enslaved woman who lived in North Carolina in the mid-19th century. In her memoir, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, Jacobs describes the horror of being forced to have sex with her owner in order to produce children. Fact number 2. Female slaves were forced into sexual relationships with their owners or overseers. Sexual abuse of female slaves was widespread during the period of American slavery. Slave women were not only subjected to forced labor, but also to sexual exploitation by their owners and overseers.
I'm going to keep stopping this throughout this just to reiterate it. Don't tell me about no other gangster, savage, devil, demon, mass murder, rape, and torturer than this motherfucking white man.
Practice was not limited to any particular region or plantation, but it was prevalent throughout the American South. The first evidence of sexual abuse of female slaves can be traced back to the transatlantic slave trade. Female slaves were often taken captive and forced to endure the long and arduous journey across the Atlantic in cramped and unsanitary conditions. During this journey, slave women were subjected to sexual abuse by the crew members and the other male slaves. Once in the American South, female slaves were subjected to even more sexual abuse. This abuse took many forms, including rape, forced sexual relationships, and prostitution. Owners and overseers would often take advantage of their power and authority to coerce slave women into sexual relationships. These relationships were often violent and non-consensual.
Rape, mass rape, torture. I don't lie when I talk about this motherfucking white man and his mama. This is truth and facts. May 12th, Friday lesson. Let's continue.
And many slave women were impregnated as a result. The children born from these forced sexual relationships were not considered the children of their fathers, but rather the property of their mother's owners. This meant that these children were also slaves and could be sold or traded just like any other commodity.
Raping a black woman, this white motherfucking devil white man, getting her pregnant, and that child that is produced, that motherfucking white devil sell his or her, his motherfucking child to another slave owner somewhere. Don't tell me about no other gangster mass murder, rape, and torture, aka the devil, if we not talking about this motherfucking white man, family. I don't want to hear you say nothing about nobody else. Don't tell me about no motherfucking deadbeat father. This white man and his mama are the captains of motherfucking uh 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 uh, of poor motherfucking fatherhood, of selling their own motherfucking children. Don't talk to me about no black man being no bad fathers if we ain't talking about this motherfucking white man and his mama first. Let's continue.
This practice was particularly common in the Upper South, where slaves were bred for sale to the Lower South. One example of this practice can be found in the story of Sally Hemings, a slave woman who was owned by former U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. Hemings was forced into a sexual relationship with Jefferson, and she gave birth to 6 children, 4 of whom survived to adulthood. These children were not recognized as Jefferson's children during his lifetime.
But the crazy thing about it is these presidents and these quote unquote y'all founding fathers who had slaves, who raped and killed and murdered African people, y'all look at them as high regard, is taught in your education system that these are good men. And y'all believe this, black man, black woman, black child, because you've been taught and educated this. Let's continue.
But DNA evidence has since confirmed their paternity. Another particularly disturbing example of sexual abuse is the case of Celia, a slave woman who was owned by Robert Newsom in Missouri. Newsom repeatedly raped Celia, and when she became pregnant, he refused to acknowledge the child as his own. When Celia killed Newsom in an act of self-defense, she was tried and convicted of murder and hanged. This case
Did y'all hear that? Let's go.
Highlights the brutal reality of sexual abuse and violence that many slave women faced in the American South. Fact number 3. The offspring produced on sex farms were separated from their families and sold as soon as they were weaned.
Sold. As soon, basically, as they were given birth, they were sold. A lot of these babies, the father was the slave owner, was this motherfucker white man. As soon as that baby damn near was born, not too long after, was sold. Their own children, they don't give a fuck. This is the devil, nigga. This ain't no motherfucking father, this motherfucking white man. This is a savage demon devil. It's in their motherfucking DNA. Let's keep going.
The practice of separating families during slavery was widespread, and it was not uncommon for enslaved children to be sold away from their parents. However, on sex farms, this practice was particularly prevalent. Enslaved women who were forced to breed were often impregnated by men who were not their husbands or partners. As a result,
So like I say, but one thing just to point out real quick, you see who they make the worst fathers in America. Not the white man. It's the black man. It's the black man who's considered the worst fathers in America and in the world. Not this motherfucking white man who would impregnate motherfucking his property, and then soon as that woman have that baby, will sell his own for money. Don't talk to me about black men. Tell me about this motherfucking number one savage devil first. Let's go. Because black people been taught well by their masters. The black man been taught well by his masters to abandon his child. Let's go.
Result, the children produced on sex farms were not part of a nuclear family unit, but rather a product to be sold for profit. According to historical records, many plantation owners saw the sale of enslaved children as a lucrative business opportunity.
Did they say historical records? Lucrative business opportunity? The price of an enslaved child varied depending on factors. These are historical records. This is not faith, and this is not belief. This is fact and truth, black man, black woman, black child. Don't tell me about another motherfucking enemy if this motherfucking white man and his mama is not your number one enemy. Let's go.
The price of an enslaved child varied depending on factors such as age, gender, and health, but they were generally sold for a higher price than adult enslaved people. This was because the children had the potential to grow up and become productive laborers, as well as future breeders themselves. In many cases, enslaved children were sold at public auctions, where they would be separated from their mothers and other family members. These auctions were often traumatic for both the
This don't sound like a devil to you, black man, black woman, black child? If this, listening to this, don't make you believe that this motherfucker white man is the devil, you shouldn't talk to me about no other devil. Go and read about the descriptions of the devil in your book or any book, and then look at what this white man and his mama been doing for the last few hundred years. And if they don't equate both of them as the same as the devil, then it should be no such thing as no devil, black man, black woman, black child. I'm serious. Don't talk to me about no devil. We're not talking about this white man and his motherfucking mama. And I keep saying his mama because that's who he came out of. Let's continue.
Enslaved people being sold and those who remained behind. In his book, The Half Has Never Been Told, Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism, historian Edward E. Baptist describes the emotional pain that families experienced when they were separated.
When you reshape things.
Enslaved people wailed and moaned, sobbed and screamed, and many of them ran to the edge of the auction platform, reaching for children or parents or lovers who were being sold away from them. The separation of families on sex.
If this ain't the devil, I don't know what a devil is then. If this white man ain't the devil, I just don't know. There is none, family. I don't believe in none anyway, but this white man is it. This white man in these books, when they describe a devil, they're just describing themselves and the things that they have done throughout history since they've been in existence. Let's go.
Farms had long-lasting effects on the enslaved people involved. Children who were sold away from their mothers often faced a lifetime of trauma and loss, and parents who were forced to give up their children lived with the pain of that separation for the rest of their lives. Fact number 4. Some plantation owners would offer rewards to enslaved men who could impregnate the most women. It may seem unimaginable to think that a person could be rewarded for impregnating multiple women, but this was a reality for some enslaved men on sex farms during slavery. Plantation owners would offer incentives to enslaved men who could produce the most offspring.
See how back then it was good? It was okay? It was seen good for a black man to have multiple babies by multiple baby mamas? When they was using it for their benefit, this motherfucking savage-ass, devil-ass white man, it's a term of endearment to have multiple baby mamas. When we can use that for lucrative purposes, for money purposes, and become wealthier. But now, let's go.
Which would be sold for profit. This practice perpetuated the dehumanization of enslaved people and further cemented their status as property rather than human beings with agency and autonomy. In some cases, plantation owners would even go so far as to pit enslaved men against each other in a competition to impregnate the most women.
Divide and
This
conquer.
not only caused harm to the enslaved women who were forced to participate in this system, but also created a toxic environment among enslaved men who were forced to compete with each other for the approval of their enslavers.
Divide and conquer, divide and conquer. I told you this white man and his mama. That's why I call them the Rocky Marcianos and the Mayweathers of America and the champs of the goddamn world, family. Mm-hmm. Yes. Now you starting to understand. I hope you do.
One example of this can be found in the diary of a plantation owner named James Hammond, who owned several plantations in South Carolina during the mid-1800s. In his diary, Hammond detailed his efforts to breed enslaved people for profit and boasted about the fertility of his enslaved women. He wrote that he offered rewards to the enslaved men who could impregnate the most women, stating that it was a great stimulus for them. This type of behavior is not only morally reprehensible, but it also had lasting consequences for the enslaved people who were forced to participate in the system. The offspring produced in this way were often sold as soon as they were weaned, leading to the separation of families and further dehumanization of enslaved people. Fact number 5. Enslaved women who were deemed to be good breeders were often treated better than those who were not. With the abolition of the slave trade, enslavers turned to women to expand the numbers of their slaves. During this time, women were viewed as reproductive machines, and their ability to bear children was a significant factor in determining their value. Enslaved women who were deemed to be good breeders were highly valued, and plantation owners often treated them better than those who were not. According to historian Deirdre Cooper Owens, plantation owners would use various criteria to determine which women were good breeders. Some factors included age, physical attributes, and fertility rates. Enslaved women who met these criteria were forced to have sex with male slaves, often against their will, and were then closely monitored throughout their pregnancies to ensure that they produced healthy offspring. Plantation owners often provided better living conditions and food to enslaved women who were good breeders. They would also give them preferential treatment in terms of work assignments and punishments. This was because the offspring produced by these women were more valuable and profitable for the plantation owner. One example of this can be seen in the life of the famous abolitionist, Harriet Jacobs. Jacobs was enslaved in North Carolina and was forced to have 2 children with her owner, Dr. James Norcom. She was deemed a good breeder and was treated relatively well compared to other enslaved women on the plantation. However, Jacobs refused to have any more children with Norcom and chose to hide in a small attic space for 7 years to avoid his advances. Despite the preferential treatment that some enslaved women received, they were still subject to the brutal conditions of slavery. They were still considered property and were forced to have sex against their will. Fact number 6. Slave breeding was a profitable business for slave owners and seen as a way to increase the owner's
Slave breeding was a profitable business for slave owners. That's very key.
wealth. The breeding of enslaved people allowed plantation owners to increase their wealth by producing more enslaved people without having to pay for additional labor. Plantation owners often kept detailed records of the children born on their farms, noting their age, sex, and parentage. These records served as a way for owners to keep track of their assets and to calculate the value of their property. Children born to enslaved mothers were often sold at auction, with the price being determined by a number of factors, including their age, health, and sex. The profitability of the breeding of enslaved people can be seen in the records like that of Thomas Thistlewood. The Jamaican plantation owner kept meticulous records of his breeding practices that would be revealed centuries later. Between 1750 and 1786, he recorded over 3,000 births on his farm, with many of these children being the result of forced breeding. Thistlewood saw the breeding of enslaved people as a way to increase his wealth, noting in his diary that all slaves are profitable, but breeding women more so than men. Another example of the profitability of slave breeding can be seen in the story of Isaac Franklin and John Armfield, 2 slave traders who operated in Alexandria, Virginia. Franklin and Armfield specialized in the slave trade and made a fortune by buying and selling slaves. They also engaged in the practice of slave breeding, and Franklin is estimated to have fathered over 600 children with female slaves in his possession. These children were then sold or traded for a profit. In addition to these records, there are numerous other historical documents that provide striking evidence to these barbaric practices. For example, advertisements for slave auctions often highlighted the breeding capabilities of enslaved women, with phrases such as prolific breeders or good breeders being used to describe them. These advertisements serve as a stark reminder of the inhumane and exploitative nature of the slave trade. Fact number 7. Plantation owners would hire doctors to oversee the breeding of enslaved people and to treat any medical issues that arose. While it may seem paradoxical for doctors, who are supposed to be healers, to oversee the breeding of enslaved people, this was a common practice on many plantations during the antebellum period. Plantation owners would hire doctors to ensure that enslaved women were healthy enough to breed and to treat any medical issues that arose during the breeding process. One particularly notorious example of this was Dr. J. Marion Sims, who is often referred to as the father of modern gynecology. Sims performed a number of experimental surgeries on enslaved women in the mid-1800s, including surgeries to repair fistulas, a condition that often occurred during childbirth. Sims conducted these surgeries without anesthesia, as he believed that enslaved people did not experience pain in the same way as white people.
The savage that they thought we were and treated us as, they didn't think our pain tolerance. We don't need anesthesia for these niggas. They are property. They slaves. They're nothing. They're less than nothing. Let's go.
His work on fistulas led to the development of new surgical techniques, but it came at a great cost to the enslaved women who were subjected to his experiments. In addition to performing surgeries, doctors were also responsible for ensuring that enslaved women were healthy enough to produce offspring. This often involved monitoring their diets and treating any illnesses that could affect their ability to conceive. However, it's important to note that this care was not provided out of concern for the well-being of the enslaved people, but rather to ensure that they were able to produce more enslaved people for the plantation owner's profit. Fact number 8. Enslaved women on sex farms were often given inadequate nutrition and health care.
Keep It Quilted means you keep it the best. Keep It Quilted means comfort that feels good and does good. With 5 million
rates of infant mortality. While fertile women were considered valuable and used as reproductive machines to produce more slaves on sex farms, the living conditions on these farms were not any better, and as a result, many infants did not survive. Enslaved women on sex farms were forced to work long hours in the fields, which meant that they were not able to take care of their babies as they should. The infants were often malnourished and sickly, and the women had no access to proper medical care to help them. This would contribute to the high rates of infant mortality as at that time. One example of this is the case of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola Prison. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Angola Prison had a large population of enslaved women who were forced to work on a sex farm. The women were subjected to brutal treatment and were given little food and water. They were also denied medical care and were forced to give birth in filthy conditions, which led to high rates of infant mortality. In a report published by the American Public Health Association in 1915, it was noted that the infant mortality rate at Angola Prison was 75%. This means that out of every 4 infants born on the farm, only 1 survived. This is a staggering statistic and shows just how dire the situation was for these women and their children. Unfortunately, Angola Prison was not the only place case. Many other sex farms across the country had similarly high rates of infant mortality. The women who were forced to work on these farms were subjected to unimaginable cruelty, leading to the death of their babies. Fact number 9. The practice of slave breeding and sex farms continued even after the abolition of slavery. Even after the abolition of slavery, the practice of slave breeding and sex farms continued in some parts of the United States. While the 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery in 1865, it did not prohibit the practice of slave breeding or sexual exploitation of former slaves. In fact, There is evidence to suggest that the practice of slave breeding continued in some parts of the South well into the early 20th century. This was due in part to the fact that many former slaves continued to work on the same plantations where they had been enslaved, and were still subject to the same
You have to work on the same plantations when you were so-called free, because the white man and his mama owned everything. So they built, they had you build America, black man. They had us build America, black man, black woman, black child, our ancestors. Uh, while they became wealthier and wealthier, more powerful, and running and owning everything. And then they say, you're free. But they own everything. So you have to just turn around, like I said in some videos before, you have to turn around and work for the same slave master. So slavery didn't stop, family. Let's go.
exploitative and abusive conditions. One of the most well-known cases of post-abolition slave breeding occurred in Natchez, Mississippi. Between the late 1860s and the early 1900s, wealthy white planters in the area engaged in a system of fancy trade, where they would buy and sell young, light-skinned African-American women who were specifically bred for their physical appearance and sexual appeal. These women, known as fancy girls, were often the daughters of mixed-race slaves and were sold at auction for exorbitant prices. They were then forced into sexual relationships with white plantation owners and their male guests, and their offspring were often sold back into the slave trade. In addition to the fancy trade, there were also reports of forced sexual relationships between white plantation owners and their former female slaves. This was made easier by the fact that many former slaves continued to live and work on the same plantations where they had been enslaved, and were often still subjected to the same abusive treatment.
Did he say worked on the same plantation, same abuse, but they were so-called free? No, that means you still enslaved. Do y'all understand that? Slavery did not stop, family. The people that enslaved us still own and operate everything, family. This is still up until today, family. So we're going to close out today on this. As you can see, it's a few minutes left. Y'all can go watch the rest yourself. But I don't want to hear black man, black woman, black child, you to tell me, black man, black woman, black child, or any race, that we're not owed motherfucking reparations, family. Do you see the sick, sadistic, devilish shit this white man and his mama have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years, family? Don't tell me that we shouldn't be fighting and willing to die for motherfucking reparations, because we are owed it. This motherfucking savage race that's called Europeans know it. Don't tell me about no other gangster, thug, drug dealer, killer, mass murderer, and mass rapist if we not talking about this motherfucking white man and his mama. This nigga would sell his own kids, would kill his own kids. Reparations is due, family. I'm going to keep bringing you this. Our babies need to see this. Even if the black elder people and the black people my age, if y'all saying fuck pro-black everything, fuck P.B.E, fuck this channel, black youth, I hope y'all getting this and listening to it. Y'all are old. We are old, black children. Stop listening to these niggas talking about voting and praying. That shit hasn't worked. Since black people been allowed in America, allowed to vote, you have not got reparations. You have not got equality. You have not got no freedom. That shit doesn't work, black man, black woman, black child. Specifically the black child. This voting and praying does not work, black children. Hopefully y'all find a better way. But you have to get reparations first, and you have to be willing to fight and die for it. Our ancestors and us been willing to fight and die for everything else that we did so-called got in America throughout the world. We done been willing to fight and die for. So we got to be willing to fight and die for reparations, family. This is pro-black everything, P.B.E. I'm out. But family, we have to understand this savage. This devil. Don't tell me about no other fucking devil if we ain't talking about this motherfucking white man and his mama, because that's who the fuck he came out of.